I still remember the day I found out. It's like some cruel twist of fate decided to drop a bomb right in the middle of my life. We'd been planning this wedding for months, my fiancé and I. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The dress, the vows, the future we dreamed of. I'd never felt so sure about anything. But then, one afternoon, I stumbled on something that shattered that certainty into 1,000 pieces. It started with a text. A simple message from a number I didn't recognize. It was on her phone, left open on the kitchen counter, her phone just sitting there like she didn't think I'd notice. I hesitated for a second, then leaned over and grabbed it. The message was from someone named Chris. At first, I thought maybe just a friend, a work thing, or maybe a joke. But the tone was different. Flirty, even intimate. Words like "missed you" and "can't wait to see you again," mixed with emojis that made my stomach churn. My fingers tightened around the phone. My heart pounded so loud I could swear she must have heard it upstairs. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind spun. How long had this been going on? Was I so blind I missed all the signs? My palms turned cold and sweaty, and I had to sit down on the kitchen chair. Everything felt surreal, like the world was tilting. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was just a harmless flirt. But then I saw the pictures. She left her photos app open, and there was a series of pictures of her and Chris kissing, holding hands, looking like they'd been at it for a while. The more I looked, the more my stomach sank. Her face was flushed in some, her eyes sparkling with that reckless glow I'd never seen before. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at the images, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, a betrayal. I clenched my fists so tight I thought I'd crush the phone. My mind raced. How long had she been lying about him? About everything. For years. I felt like I'd been living in a fog, and now it was all gone. I needed to get out of there. My legs felt numb. I grabbed her phone and slid it into my pocket. Then I went to our bedroom where she was getting ready for her evening shift. She looked so normal, so unaware. That's what made it worse. She didn't look guilty or ashamed, just like she was living in some fantasy world where I didn't exist. I caught her eye through the mirror. "Who is Chris?" I asked, voice cold and trembling. She froze, then spun around. Her face went pale, but she quickly masked it with a fake smile. "What are you talking about?" I didn't say anything. Instead, I handed her the phone. She looked down and saw the pictures, her face drained of color. "I don't know how that got there," she mumbled, stumbling over her words. But I saw the truth in her eyes. She knew exactly what that meant. That moment was the start of everything falling apart. I realized I'd been living in a lie, and the betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. I had no more illusions about trust. All I felt now was a burning need to find out the truth, and to make her pay for what she'd done. That night I could sleep. My mind kept replaying everything I'd seen. Her face when she caught me, the way her eyes flicked away like she was hiding something. I kept going over those pictures, those intimate moments she'd shared with Chris. It was so raw, so real. I could almost feel the warmth of her skin and the bitterness of betrayal swelling in my chest. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't sure what. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. I needed proof. I wasn't just going to confront her blindly. I wanted to be sure I knew the whole story. I spent the day covertly gathering evidence, turning her world upside down without her noticing. I checked her emails, her social media accounts, messages she'd deleted, things I'd never bothered to look at before. I found more. A whole trail of lies. She convinced herself she was clever, hiding her affair behind vague texts and secret meetings. But the evidence was there. Clandestine messages, photos she'd tried to erase, even a hotel receipt from a week ago. My stomach clenched every time I uncovered another layer of her deception, like peeling back the skin on a wound I'd hoped was healing, but was just festering. I remember one specific moment. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen table. I was pretending to be busy, but I couldn't stop myself. I snatched it up, saw a new message from Chris. It read, "Can't wait tonight, babe, babe." That word made my skin crawl. I felt heat rise in my face. That was the moment I realized I'd been stupid to think I knew her at all. I sat in the dark that evening, staring at the evidence I'd collected, feeling more alive with rage than I ever had before. I had a choice: confront her now or keep digging for more and ruin whatever future I thought we had. I knew what I had to do. I'd been betrayed, yes, but now I'd turn the tables. She thought she was clever, thought she could get away with it. Not anymore. I didn't tell her I knew everything. Not yet. Instead, I started planning my move, trying to stay calm. I knew she'd try to deny everything, spin some story to save herself, but I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wanted her to understand there was no way back from this. I was going to make her regret every lie, every betrayal. The plan was simple but calculated. I'd set a trap, catch her off guard, and make her feel the weight of her actions. I'd pretend I didn't know, lure her into a false sense of security, then expose her lies in front of her. I wanted her to feel the fear, knowing that I knew that I was in control now. By late evening, I had the perfect setup. Her phone, her laptop, all synced up, ready to reveal every hidden detail. I even arranged for a few close friends to be on standby, not for an intervention but to witness the fallout. I wanted her to know I was serious. I was done playing nice. That night I put my plan into motion. I waited until she came home, eyes flickering with that familiar, careless glow. She was tired, distracted, oblivious to the storm brewing. I greeted her with a cold smile and my stomach twisted tighter than ever. "Hey," she said, trying to sound normal. "What's wrong?" I looked her in the eyes, my voice steady but packed with anger. "We need to talk, and I mean seriously, about Chris, about everything." Her face didn't change. "What are you talking about? I told you I don't know what you saw." I pulled out her phone and handed it to her. "You mean this or the emails I found, the hotel receipt? How long has this been going on?" Her eyes widened. She stammered, trying to deny, to lie, but I wasn't buying it. I had her cornered and her shoulders sagged with defeat. I saw her break just a little, and that's when I knew this was the end of the line. I was finally going to get my revenge, once and for all, and there was no turning back now. Her face went pale when she saw the evidence I laid out before her. Her hands trembled, but she quickly tried to compose herself, to put on that fake smile she'd perfected over the years. It didn't work. Not anymore. The anger inside me boiled over, making my voice sharper than I intended. "You lied to me for years," I said. "All those nights you said you were working late or out with friends. Turns out you were with Chris, with him behind my back. How long has this going on? Months? Years?" She hesitated, her eyes darting away then back to me. "It's not what you think. It was a mistake," she whispered, voice trembling. "It doesn't mean anything. I love you." I scoffed, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "Love? You think that makes this okay? That some mistake justifies it? Do you even hear yourself? How many lies do I have to listen to before I realize this isn't the woman I thought I married?" Her cheeks flushed and her voice cracked. "Please. You have to believe me. It's complicated." I was confused. "We didn't mean for it to happen, I swear." I clenched my fists, fighting to keep control. "No, no more lies. I've seen the proof. The messages, the photo. You think I'm stupid enough to buy some half-assed excuse? You think I don't know how many times you've lied over the years?" She looked like she was about to cry, but I was beyond caring. I'd kept quiet for too long, trying to be fair. But fairness was a one-way street, and now I was done. Done pretending I didn't see what was in front of me. "You want to keep lying," I said coldly. "Go ahead, but I'm done with this charade. I want the truth. No more hiding, no more secrets." She hesitated a moment longer, then finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "It was never about us. It was about me feeling lost. I was lonely and he was there, someone who made me feel alive again. I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear." I shook my head, feeling the rage simmering beneath my skin. That's the kind of excuse I'd expect from a child. "You betrayed me, you lied to me for so long, and now you're trying to justify it. Sorry. I'm not interested in your sob story. I'm done being the fool." Her eyes welled with tears, but I was already making up my mind. I knew this wasn't going to be a clean ending, but I had reached my breaking point. She had to feel some consequences. She had to realize that her lies had burned everything to the ground. I took a deep breath, calming myself just enough to lay out the next step of my plan. "You're not going to get away with this, not without paying a price. I've decided I'm going to make you regret ever crossing me." Her voice cracked again. "Please don't do this. Just give me a chance to explain. We can fix this. I love you." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Love, that's gone. What you did killed it. And now I'm going to make sure you feel the pain you caused without destroying everything, but enough to make you think twice." She looked at me, helpless, her face streaked with tears. "What are you going to do?" I smiled coldly for the first time in years. "You'll see, but just know this, every action has consequences, and I'm going to make sure you remember that for a long time." That night I stayed up late orchestrating my plan. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to know that I was no longer the naive husband she thought I was. I knew I couldn't just walk away. That wouldn't serve justice. No, I had to make her realize what she'd lost and what she had coming. First, I went through her phone again, carefully deleting some messages. Not all, just enough to keep the appearance that everything was still intact. I left the ones that showed her and Chris in their private world, the evidence of their affair, untouched. I wanted her to believe I hadn't uncovered everything yet. I also set up a fake email account, one she'd never suspect, and began to send her subtle hints that I was watching. Little things like, "You're not as clever as you think," and "I know everything." I knew she'd start to panic once she realized her secret was leaking. The next part of my plan was to make her think I was going to leave her. I kept my emotions in check, pretending I was still considering a separation, but secretly, I was preparing a more calculated move. I contacted a private investigator I'd heard about. I paid him to follow her for a few days, gather more proof, and see if she was still meeting Chris or anyone else. I wanted her to believe I was walking away, but really I was gathering ammunition. While I did all this, she grew increasingly paranoid. She started acting nervous, avoiding her phone, checking her reflection more often. I'd catch her staring at her own reflection in the mirror as if trying to decide what to say or do next. One morning I overheard her whisper, "He's onto me." That's when I knew I'd struck a nerve. I enjoyed watching her squirm, knowing I was finally hitting back. I also placed a small hidden camera in the living room. Nothing obvious, just a tiny device that would record if she made any further contact with Chris or anyone else. It was a silent witness. I wanted undeniable proof, and I was prepared to use it. I kept my composure even as my stomach twisted with rage. This was about justice, not revenge for revenge's sake. Though I admit, I enjoyed the thought of her feeling vulnerable just for a moment. Over the next couple of days, my suspicions were confirmed. The investigator caught her meeting Chris at a nearby park. I watched the footage myself, her trying to hide her face, her fingers trembling as she hugged him. That was the tipping point. I knew I had to act fast. I'd waited long enough for her to realize she'd crossed a line. Now I was ready to confront her in a way she wouldn't expect. That night I sat her down again. She was nervous, jittery even. I kept my face calm, but inside my mind was racing. I had all the evidence, her hotel receipts, the pictures, the investigator's report, the emails I'd carefully crafted. I wanted her to see that I was in control, that I knew everything. "I gathered a little more evidence," I said quietly, sliding a flash drive across the table. "This has all the proof you need. Your meetings, your texts, everything." She looked at it, her eyes wide with fear. "Please don't do this. I swear I'll fix it. Just give me a chance." I shook my head slowly. "There's no fixing this. You've been lying to me for years. I want to hear it from you. Are you still seeing him? Are you still lying?" Her breath hitched. "No, I swear I haven't seen him since I got caught." "Good," I said, voice cold, "because I'm done. But I want you to understand something. I'm not just going to walk away and forget about this. You're going to regret what you did, and I've got a plan to make sure of it." Her face crumpled, tears spilling over. "Please don't do something you'll regret. We can still fix this. I love you." I looked at her and finally let the coldness seep into my voice. "Love, that's gone. What you did broke everything. Now you're going to see what true betrayal feels like." The next morning I woke up with a clarity I'd never felt before, calm, cold, and completely in control. My plan was set, and I knew she was feeling the pressure. I watched her move around the apartment, jittery, checking her phone every few minutes as if she thought I'd come at any moment with more evidence. I could see the fear in her eyes, and honestly, it was satisfying. But this wasn't about just making her scared. It was about making her understand what she'd lost. I decided to give her a little more rope. I left her alone most of the day, pretending to be indifferent. But I kept my phone nearby, ready to pounce at the right moment. In the afternoon, I made a call to the investigator, confirmed that she'd been meeting Chris again, even after I'd shown her the evidence. My stomach clenched again, but I kept my face steady. Around dinner time, I told her I wanted to talk. "Come on, sit down," I said, voice flat but commanding. She hesitated but finally sat across from me, clutching her hands nervously. I slid the flash drive across the table. "Here, everything you need to see, everything you've been hiding. This is the end of the line." Her trembling fingers hesitated over the device. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I was just lost and I didn't want to hurt you, I swear." I looked her straight in the eyes. "You didn't mean for it, that's bullshit. You lied, cheated, and betrayed me for years, and now you're trying to play the victim." She looked down, tears streaming down her face, voice choked. "Please, just forgive me. I love you. I don't want to lose everything." I reached into my pocket, pulling out her keys. "You're not going anywhere tonight. Not until I get a few things straight." I leaned in closer. "You're going to pack your bags. You're going to leave this apartment and stay away. And when you do, I want you to think about what you've lost." Her eyes widened with shock. "You're kicking me out." "Exactly. And I'll be watching if you try to contact him or anyone else, because I've got the evidence now and I'm not stupid enough to trust you anymore." I put her keys on the table, then slowly reached into my pocket, pulling out a folded paper. "This is the divorce papers. I want you to sign them. That's the only way this ends." Her face drained of color. "You're serious?" "I am," I said firmly. "I won't be a fool anymore, not after all the lies, not after everything you've done." She looked like she was about to argue, but I cut her off. "Think about it. You've got a few hours. I'll be back later to pick up your things. You're leaving this life behind, and I suggest you do it quickly." She stared at the keys, then at the divorce papers. The fight was gone from her eyes, replaced by defeat. I knew I'd made my point. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself from the wreckage of her lies. I turned around and left her sitting there, trembling, face streaked with tears. As I stepped out, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with rage. I'd taken back control and I was finally free from her web of deception. It was overdone. But I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one I'd write on my own terms. I closed the door behind me and walked to my car, feeling the cold air hit my face. I took a deep breath, letting the crispness clear my mind. I'd done what needed to be done. I'd handed her the keys, watched her crumble, and now I was moving on. The lesson: never ignore the red flags, trust your gut, and when someone crosses the line, don't hesitate to exact the kind of justice that leaves no doubt. Because sometimes the only way to truly heal is to take control and cut out everything that's toxic. Weeks later, I was sitting in my apartment, finally feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. The divorce went through smoothly. She signed without contest, probably realizing she'd lost everything she once held dear. I handed over her keys myself, watching her walk out that door for the last time, her face hollow, eyes red, a shell of the woman I once loved. That moment was like a release. I'd taken back control, and for the first time in years I felt genuine clarity. Living alone wasn't easy at first. The silence was deafening, and every corner of the apartment echoed with memories of what we'd built, both the good and the terrible. But over time, I started to breathe again. I replaced the photos of us with things I genuinely loved, things that made me feel alive. I didn't rush into anything new. I wanted to rebuild slowly on my own terms. Looking back, I realize how much I ignored the signs, how I let her manipulate me with charm and excuses for so long. The truth is, I'd been blind, believing in our future, trusting blindly. But those red flags added up, and I kept brushing them off until I couldn't anymore. The moment I saw the messages, I knew everything had changed. I just didn't want to face it until I had to. My advice: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs, the secretive glances, the hurried responses, the lies you tell yourself because you don't want to face the truth. When betrayal hits, don't hesitate. Act decisively, even if it means losing everything for a while. Because in the end, reclaiming your dignity is worth more than any false comfort. I've learned that revenge in this context isn't about hurting her, it's about reclaiming myself. Setting boundaries, standing tall, and refusing to let someone else dictate my happiness anymore. Sure, I felt anger and betrayal, but I also felt liberation. The kind of liberation that comes when you finally decide your life will no longer revolve around someone who doesn't deserve your trust. Now, I focus on just me. It's not easy starting over, but it's better than living in the shadow of lies. Every day I remind myself of what I've been through, not to dwell on it, but to grow stronger. That's the key. Move on, learn, and never let someone take your peace without a fight. And if there's one thing I want others to take away from this, it's this. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. When someone betrays your trust, do justify or excuse it. Cut it out, walk away, and rebuild. Because the worst thing you can do is stay in a situation where you're constantly questioning what's real. Trust yourself, trust your gut, and never let anyone take your power away. Because at the end of the day, no betrayal is worth losing who you are.